Generation X may be the only generation that learned independence before anyone called it a skill. No tracking apps, no group chats, no constant audience. For many, childhood contained long stretches where nobody was watching, and adulthood arrived with one lesson already installed: figure it out. This is the psychology of Gen X, usually defined as people born from 1965 through 1980. But this is not another list of stereotypes about sarcasm or being tough. We are going to look at the environment that shaped many Gen X lives, what it rewarded, and why one popular idea about generations falls apart near the end. Start with the empty house. During the 1970s and 1980s, more mothers with children entered the labor force. By 1984, the labor force participation rate for mothers with children under 18 had climbed above 60% in the United States. At the same time, millions of school-aged children regularly spent time at home without an adult after school. That did not create one universal Gen X childhood. Some had stay-at-home parents, some had close supervision, but the latchkey kid became a real cultural figure for a reason. Imagine being 10. You get home, you unlock the door yourself, you make food, you answer the phone, you know which neighbor to call if something goes wrong. The psychological lesson is obvious, but the outcome is not. Research on latchkey children found mixed results. Self-care could be associated with independence and responsibility, but also loneliness, fear, or risk, depending on the child and family. Gen X was not magically made stronger by neglect, but many children were given responsibility early. Competence became useful before confidence became fashionable. That distinction matters because self-reliance can be strength without pretending every unsupervised childhood was healthy. The same environment could produce confidence in one child and vigilance in another. Then there was the friction. If you wanted information, you often had to look for it. If your bicycle chain came off, somebody had to touch the chain. If your friend was not home, you could not watch a location dot move across a map. That environment rewarded patience with incomplete information. It also made boredom normal. Without an endless feed filling every quiet second, there were more occasions to improvise, repair, wait, or simply sit with your own thoughts. That does not make analog childhood superior. It makes it different. Gen X became a bridge cohort between analog childhood and digital adulthood. They learned one set of rules, then watched the world replace them. That may help explain a quality often associated with Gen X: adaptability without much ceremony. The point is not nostalgia, it is practice. Repeatedly solving small problems without instant assistance can make uncertainty feel less threatening later. Now add institutions. Gen X grew up while confidence in institutions was tested by political scandal, economic restructuring, changing family patterns, and public crises. Adults often preach stability: work hard, be responsible, trust the system. The visible world was less stable. That mismatch can teach a habit: listen to promises but watch outcomes. This is where Gen X skepticism makes more sense. Not permanent cynicism, more like emotional hedging. Hope for the good result. Keep a backup plan. Respect the person who knows what they are doing. Be less impressed by the person who only has the title. If this sounds familiar, notice what you are recognizing. It is not a birth year horoscope. It is a survival style that made sense in a particular environment. This is where the Gen X image gets interesting. Skepticism can protect judgment, but too much can also become distance from support, institutions, and trust. Gen X reached childhood and adolescence before ordinary life was permanently documented. Embarrassing moments usually had a short physical radius. A stupid argument was not stored in a cloud. Privacy was not a luxury setting. It was the default. So when social media later asked everyone to turn daily life into public content, some Gen X adults entered that world with a different baseline. Not anti-technology, just less convinced that visibility equals connection. Dry humor, irony, and understatement can also create emotional distance. They let you acknowledge that something hurts without building a ceremony around it. Sometimes that is resilience. Sometimes it is avoidance. Because never asking for help is not the same thing as being strong. If you are Gen X, or you were raised by Gen X parents, tell me which part feels accurate and which part feels completely wrong. That second answer matters too. And if you want more short psychological profiles like this, subscribe, because the next generation will look very different when we use the same evidence-first approach. At work, Gen X is often described as independent, skeptical of hierarchy, and less attached to employers than older workers. Some studies have found differences between Gen X and Boomers in work attitudes, but the evidence is much less clean than popular business books make it sound. Age matters, career stage matters, industry matters, economic conditions matter. Still, one idea fits the historical context well. Do not build your identity around an institution that can change the rules without asking you. Build portable competence. Know how to do something useful. Learn the system. Keep enough independence to leave if the relationship stops working. That is a Gen X form of security, not certainty, capability. Here is the part most generation videos leave out. Researchers increasingly warn that generational labels can become storytelling machines. Pew Research Center notes that generational categories are not scientifically precise. Researchers studying generations at work have gone further, arguing that evidence for stable generational differences is often weak and can be confused with age, life stage, or historical period. That changes the whole video. Maybe Gen X is not a personality type. Maybe it is a useful lens for asking what happens when millions of people pass through similar technologies, family structures, institutions, and economic conditions at roughly similar ages. That is more interesting than a stereotype. A Gen Xer can be expressive, dependent, optimistic, social, or obsessed with posting online and still be completely Gen X. The label describes context better than destiny. And that may be the real psychology of Gen X. Not that they were born independent. Many were given independence early. Not that they were born skeptical. Many watched certainty fail. Not that they naturally value privacy. They remember a world where privacy happened automatically. Not that they hate technology. They remember life before technology became the environment itself. Generation X stands in a strange position. Old enough to remember the analog world clearly, young enough to have built careers inside the digital one. They are not necessarily tougher than the generations around them, but many became fluent in transition. And people who spend their lives translating between two worlds rarely look dramatic while doing it. They just become the bridge. That quiet adaptability may reveal more than stereotypes about sarcasm, cynicism, privacy, toughness, or distance ever could. If that description fits someone you know, send them this video. And if it fits you, you probably will not make a big announcement about it, which somehow would be very Gen X.